The Chicago Bulls, as we all know, have lost 10 games in a row. And after their latest loss versus the Charlotte Hornets, Matas Buzelis is showing clearly that the losing is taking its toll. We're going to talk about when will the Chicago Bulls win their next game. And then we're going to have an early look to the offseason to where there are rumors that the Chicago Bulls might have some luck, but will they be aggressive and smart about it? Y'all know we're going to talk about it, break it all down, but you gotta hear the music first.
Cognac, gang.
Shy Boys podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on today's daily episode. So if you're tuned in, ready to talk Bulls basketball, even though they give us a tons of headaches, make sure you go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Now, we know the last time we seen our Chicago Bulls, we seen Matas Buzelis go out there and have a career high, but ultimately as a team, they lost. And then they lost their 10th game in a row at that moment in time. Now they have a game later today versus the Portland Trail Blazers, and one has to really consider when will the Chicago Bulls win their next game. But as of right now, the Chicago Bulls are on their fourth worst losing streak in franchise history since 2019. And if you remember correctly, the head coach at that time was Jim Boylan. He took over and then went on a losing streak after the Chicago Bulls let go Fred Hoiberg. And there were some comments that came out from one specific player who I think I hold in a high regard, maybe more so than others, but that is Matas Buzelis. After that loss to where he scored 32 points, a career high for him, and taking that L, reporters had a bunch of questions for him, and they asked him about his development and how they seen some middies. Y'all remember after the game, I was like, Matas was shooting middies? What? That came after a conversation with him and Billy Donovan, with Billy Donovan expressing to Matas that he wanted Matas to go out there and score more frequently off the dribble and things like that, using his talent that he has that, still needs some work, but work on it in the game. But after that game, Matas Buzelis was asked about his development and what took place throughout that entire game. And look, man, look, it's just one of those things. And Matas Buzelis said this: "I'm sorry. I just want to win. I want to win games. That's what everything is about, winning games. That will come because I'm a worker." Now, it's one of those things where you look at Matas Buzelis and be like, damn, I feel for the kid. And it's another thing to add on when we heard Jaden Ivey when he received the DNP from the Chicago Bulls, and him pretty much sounding like a man that was defeated, if we keeping it a buck. But I will say that bad, like, the experience between fan and player is a lot different when it comes to wins and losses in any sport. I know me, when I was playing sports, very, very competitive, didn't give a damn, was fired up, sometimes had to be pulled off to the sideline and have a talking to say, keep a cool head, chill out, be cool. Hell, I even use that type of competition right now. I don't care if I'm playing a game with a family member. If it's tic-tac-toe, I want to win. That's just the type of competitor I am. And I would know and understand that there are some other players that are in these professional leagues. They're not for the tanking. That's the player experience. The player experience for some guys, they don't like this losing stuff. They want to go out there and show their talents, get the recognition that they deserve, and they want to win basketball games, football games, et cetera, et cetera. Like, but then there comes a point to where you look at the fan experience. The fan experience goes out there, and some of us, we come to we come to terms and understand the reality of it, like myself, that this team is just not good enough to win a bunch of games. They're not going to the playoffs. Most of us don't want to see him in a play-in again and get him bounced out, and having some type of belief that this team can make a playoff series and win a game or win two games, or hell, even watch him get swept in the first round of the playoffs. That's the fan experience. And then on, at least from my perspective, and then there's some that's like, we don't give a damn, just lose 30 games in a row. And it's a fine line that you have to tote, in my personal opinion, when you go out there and you say that we're tanking. Because one thing that we already know is that once you go out there and start to have this losing mentality, this losing culture flowing through the hallways of your organization or flowing on the court or the field, that it's hard to come from up under that. And then that requires changes at some major positions that have a clearer vision, that want to go out there and do things correctly. So it's a fine line, because you can look at some teams into where you say, hey, these guys tank, look at the talent that they have in the building, but then ultimately it's hard to remove the stench. And then you look at some situations where you say, hey, we're going to go out there and tank. We're going to go out there and do things smartly and correct. And ultimately, sometimes that benefits that said organization. But it also depends on who you're dealing with that's running the organization. And who we're dealing with is a guy that no one really trusts. At the beginning of the trade deadline, guys are looking at him like, okay, cool, you're cooking. You know what I'm saying? After the first few trades, and then after you looking at some of the trades that happen after, some people are back to square one, where it's like, man, what are we doing? And then you look at the influx of guards, you look at the lack of big man to go out there and develop, or at least get a closer eye at. You look at who people was potentially traded for, and then watching them go to other teams and do other things. And you be like, damn, why couldn't we have that player in the Chicago Bulls uniform to see how he can develop with this squad? And we just looking at a bunch of guards on the Chicago Bulls, and we're struggling to wrap our minds around the idea of, you can't find enough minutes for these guys. So how the hell can we understand, or at least get a visual of what the product will look like moving forward? Right now, the Chicago Bulls, look, at least for the players, it's understandable that these guys, you know, are feeling a certain way. But then I hope that in the reality of, and where the fan experience and the player experience can come to, come to walk in lockstep, is that the guys that are running the show are complete idiots, and they don't move proactively. They are reactive to damn near everything that they do. Like, there are some things you can give credit for to the front office, but there are a lot of things to where you can look at them sideways. So I think that when it comes to the tanking thing, my position is, I don't really like it, but I understand where we are right now. We're trying to get the picks. And then I do understand the player experience on the flip side of that, with them pretty much saying, look, man, I'm not here to play games. I want to win. I actually care about basketball. I actually want to have fun playing basketball. I actually love basketball, because it's not a lot of players that come out there and say, I want to go out there and give my all to a city and give my all to an organization, because there are some players that will come out there, work their ass off for a couple years, get that big contract, and then say, hey, I did what I was supposed to do, so hell with y'all. And that's what we don't want. And the next thing that we don't want is Matas Buzelis to be a guy that turns into Larry Market and say, to hell with y'all, I'm out of here. That's what we don't want. We want to go out there and see if this young man can develop and continue to get better and be a cornerstone piece for the Chicago Bulls moving forward, so we can have sustained success, not just 1 year, sustained success for a number of years. But when will the losing stop? I don't know. We're going up against a tough Portland Trailblazers team. We talked about it after on the post game after the Charlotte Hornets lost, and some people, hey, it's a valid reason. It was like, we gotta let Portland win. It's understandable to a degree, letting them win, because we want to get that draft pick that we sent over there years ago. We finally want to get it in the hands of the Chicago Bulls. So it's understandable. But at the end of the day, the Chicago Bulls players saying fuck them picks. I'm pretty sure of that. I'm pretty sure they out there saying fuck them picks. So it's a different experience between the fans and the players. Now, when you look at the schedule moving forward, it just gets a lot tougher for the Chicago Bulls. After Portland, we go against Milwaukee. Okay, that's kind of like an even matchup. But then you got OKC, Phoenix, Sacramento. Bro, that would take us to 15 games. We ready to go on a 14 game losing streak before the next win? Golly, that'll be a gut punch to that locker room. And I honestly questioning what the hell how Billy Donovan is feeling about all this. I ain't saying that Billy Donovan is supposed to be happy or upset. It's just a legit question on what is the temperature in the room from the head coach. Like, how are you keeping guys motivated through this? Because some guys right now, to be honest with you, they could start planning their damn vacations right now, the way the Chicago Bulls are looking. And some guys may be getting ready to step down and just take their seat, bro. That's just really it. The injuries to Anthony Simons is something that the injuries to Anthony Simons is just something that's a head scratcher. He came over here. Now he's here. Wrist injury. Then they sent him to get more imaging. Now it's a fracture wrist. Then you look at Jaden Ivey, and then you say, hey, we know that he's coming back from that horrible leg injury. Can he get back to his old self? And then now he got inflammation in his knee. Then Jalen Smith, we trying to see if he can come back, had a really solid season when he's on the basketball court. And now as of late, he can't stay healthy. So it's just a bunch of head scratching decisions, a bunch of head scratching and frustrated things going on with the state of our Chicago Bulls. But man, let's talk about some potential positives, man. We got to talk about the potential positives, man. But hey, we move on. An early look to the offseason now is what I want to talk about to end on a higher note. That we know that the tank is on. That's just what it is. They're not good enough to win a lot of basketball games. When the next win will come, we don't know. Maybe tonight, maybe in 2 weeks. Who knows? But for the sake of this, we're looking at the Chicago Bulls, who are currently slotted in the ninth spot with a 20.3% chance of moving up to the top four in this year's draft, and have a 4.5% chance of grabbing the top pick. I ran a simulator today on Tankathon. The Bulls got the second pick. I ain't gonna do it no more. I'm gonna just let it rest. I ain't trying to jinx it. I'm not really a superstitious guy, but I want to get a wheel of spin at least one time and then go from there and see what's to it, man. But hey, we slotted in at number 2. Now let's see what happens. That's it. That's all, man. And then another good thing for the Chicago Bulls is being reported that the Chicago Bulls can have in between 66 million and 76 million available to them in cap space at the end of the season, depending on some of the decisions that they're going to make after the season. Don't forget, we have a bunch of guys on expiring contracts. We have a guy like Jaden Ivey going into restricted free agency. So it's going to be a lot of decisions that are going to be made. And Elias Schuster offered his thoughts on the situation, saying that the Clippers, Lakers, Nets, and Bulls, however, all projected to be in position to spend some major money. Sources say Chicago has already sent some signals that they will be looking at wings, restricted free agents included, while the Bulls are also clearly in the need of a starting caliber big man. That's what he said. He goes on to claim that the Washington Wizards moves for Anthony Davis and Trae Young, as well as the Utah Jazz moves for Jaren Jackson Jr., means that those two teams no longer have the financial means to make big moves in the summer. So there's maybe a little light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe. I'm not going to go that route. I'm in the phase of you have to show me. That's just what it is. There are some guys that are going to be available. There are some guys that are being linked to the Chicago Bulls. There's a report going around saying that the Chicago Bulls should look at trying to aggressively go after a guy like Walker Kessler. That was my train of thought at the trade deadline. I said, they just traded for Triple J. Why not go out there and try to acquire a guy like Walker Kessler? Even though it will piss me off a little bit because you could have had him in the building already if you drafted right, but nonetheless, that's one player that they can go and be aggressive to try to, see how his restricted free agency will go with him in the Utah Jazz. And if the Chicago Bulls make an offer, obviously the Utah Jazz have the ability to match that said offer. Another guy that they threw out there is Peyton Watson. And from what I'm seeing, he having a really good season over there in Denver. That's a wing that they could potentially bring in. And how aggressive will the Chicago Bulls be? We'll see. We shall see. They love guys that are young with experience. But will those guys young guys with experience be guys that are willing to come over here well, not willing to come over here, but will they come over here and change the landscape for the Chicago Bulls? So there is a possibility that this offseason could be aggressive, be a good thing for the Chicago Bulls. We're talking about the draft pick that they could potentially get. Maybe one, they got one, maybe two. If the Portland Trailblazers make the playoffs, I don't know yet. Then you talk about the money that's going to be available for them and some young guys with the experience that are going to be restricted free agents that the Chicago Bulls can try to pry away from their respective teams. But hey, that's some light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe we looking through a peephole because we just don't know with this front office, man. It's just so frustrating at times. And it's still going to be decisions that have to be made in regards to restricted free agency of Jaden Ivey, and then some of the expiring contracts, your Nick Richards, your Buzelis, your Anthony Simons of the world, and, moving forward. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep you all updated, and then we'll just try to figure it all out as a collective, whether we agree or disagree. But hey, that is it for me today, y'all. I appreciate y'all for tuning in into another episode. Make sure you go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as well, man. I appreciate y'all. Try to see red. It's very, very hard right now. But at the end of the day, I appreciate y'all for listening to my TED Talk. Thank y'all, man. Y'all already know. I'm going to catch y'all on the next one for sure. Peace.
Cognac. Gang.